Welcome to Transformation Now, a division of SoaringHigher.rocks. These programs are here to help you build with tools and techniques for your life and career, things that you can start using immediately and that will last a lifetime. Hi, I'm Rita Rocker Kraft, and as an international author, speaker, and trainer, my heart is to really provide excellent programs, talk shows, educational and inspirational ideas that you can benefit from and that will be a real blessing to you. So again, what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk to you, this is a two-part series, on rising above the competition and mastering your business etiquette, but this also applies to every area of your life. Do you know that the most important thing a person can wear is confidence? And that doesn't mean being egotistical or arrogant, but it means an air of confidence that you know your value, your worth, what you have to offer, because all of you do. And so that is the very most important thing. You know, in today's competitive business environment, good sense, everyday manners can make the difference between getting ahead or being left behind. And so these are tips that you can start using to build up your confidence level and to really win people over, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life. All forms of etiquette affect other people, including clients, colleagues, friends, and the suppliers that maybe you use in your business. So these are things that will attract people to you, get them to want to do business with you, get them to want to be friends with you. And so again, this is the first part of that. You know, so many colleges teach on ethics, but they don't really teach on business etiquette. And I know that, you know, we heard like even with Generation X, but especially millennials, you know, they're kind of called the McManners generation. Meaning, you know, everybody's on the fast move, they're grabbing a bag through drive-through to eat and really not having the communication skills or learning the manners that they need when they get out into the business world. I remember a couple programs I did with finance and accounting students at one of the colleges, and they looked like they had just rolled out of bed. And I said, well, what about appearance? And they said, well, our professor said, as long as we have the knowledge, the technical ability, and the education, that's not important. And I said, oh, yes, it is, because people will judge you in those first 7 seconds, and that's something we'll talk about in a little bit. And so if they see that you take care of yourself, you take care of the details of yourself, they will be more trustworthy that you will also take care of their business. And so it is really, really, really important. And so people judge us, unfortunately, by how we act, how we speak, how we look, and how we write. And writing is so important too, because I remember working for a company a few years ago that had me come in, and they said, it was a staffing firm, and they said, we're catching that a lot of our employees are actually sending vice presidents and directors of companies text messages, and it's all run together. They're not actually writing professional messages to these people, and it's hurting our image, our business image. And so I went in there and I talked to them about the importance of sentence structure and communicating to them like a professional business person, which is so different from texting a friend. And so that's something that's really, really important. It may be a new day, a new age, but nevertheless, in business, we have to treat it like business and not like we're just having a friendly conversation with a friend. So our outward appearance and our demeanor also definitely affects our communications abilities, not only on the job, but off the job as well. And so that's important. And the biggest determining factor as whether someone takes us seriously is actually our opinion of ourselves. And our opinion of ourselves, our self-perception is so critical in people wanting to do business with us, believing that we have something to say, that we have something to offer. And so as I go through not only these two programs, but other programs in the future, I want you to really have a different perception, if need be, about who you are, what you have to offer, because you are very valuable. And so people will judge us and treat us how we are treating ourselves. That is really critical. So we're going to discuss that. And over the last 30, 40, even 50 years, business etiquette has changed so much because of technology, global economy. I mean, there's been what used to be called the women's lib movement, and so the business world is different. Americans with Disabilities Act, there's so many things that have changed, and so we want to keep up with that so we can connect really with all socioeconomic and educational groups, because we deal with everybody from young people to elderly every week, and so that's very, very important. Business etiquette is so important because we want people to take us seriously. We want to treat everyone with respect. I remember when I worked for a now defunct, very famous business, and I worked for one of the executive vice presidents, and I noticed that he would treat the janitor, the custodial service, the same way he would treat an executive. And that made such a powerful impression, knowing that you treat all people equally and with manners, with courtesy, no matter what position they have. And that also brings people to you, brings appreciation and respect. That means not making people wait. That means being courteous, giving them the attention that they deserve when you're having a conversation with them, and not, going on the cell phone, looking at that or looking around or doing other things, but to really be engaged in talking with them personally. It's not leaving messes for other people to clean up. I remember when I worked for a law firm many, many years ago, and even though the dishwasher was right next to the sink, the attorneys would always leave everything in the sink and expect the other employees to clean up after them. And it really did put a negative bent on how some of the attorneys were looking at the administrative staff. So there again, we're always making impressions of people, and we want to be very careful with that. Dressing appropriately for business. I know in so many times when I was at business networking events and conferences, I would literally hear people, mostly men, but some women, talk about women not dressing appropriately, where their dresses were cut very low or very high, and they would determine this person's value, what she was really after. Was she after a promotion? Was she after business? Or was she after other things? And I even heard people talk about in the courtroom where female attorneys were dressing very inappropriately, and it was hurting their credibility in the law offices and the courtrooms. So again, we can dress very professionally for business, change clothes, go out and have fun, but there's a difference there between the two. And we also want to honor people's times and commitments, and again, treat everybody with respect and good manners. Comfortably exhibiting skills, we want to be respected for that. That's so important, refining our manners to gain people's cooperation. If you go into a store, are you happy with the customer service, which is very poor nowadays? I have a whole program on customer service. And so we want to be treated like the person who's helping us actually cares that we learn the technical ability or whatever we need to learn about a product. And so we always want to make sure that we're not jeopardizing our image or our company's image by showing a lack of interest, like, okay, well, figure this out yourself kind of attitude. And so think about that in your company. You are your business. You represent not only your business, but you. And for those of you who are entrepreneurs, you are everything as far as the reputation of your business. So you want to think about that. We don't want to risk our image, limit our potential, and limit our success, and limit the kind of clients we have and the staff we have. So always think, your focus should always be, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And as you do that, that's going to make a big difference. And I've heard too, people are networking, they're doing business like, no, my company doesn't provide this. However, I can introduce you to someone who does. And so always be thinking of how you can help them. If you can't help them, then introduce them to somebody who can. It builds a beautiful network for you. It's so important. And so practicing these etiquette skills will help you in business, on the golf course, in sales meetings, whatever the case may be. There are many distracting behaviors too, again, of looking around the room, of doing other things, and so you always want to be completely engaged, good eye contact, positive body signals, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes, to attract people rather than repel them. It differentiates you from the competition, especially by contrast and what people see now. There's also psychological power, and that is so amazing because we can change an image of ourselves. We can change how people receive us. Maybe you've seen someone else who had gave you a lot of negative impressions, and then all of a sudden they really changed. What they did was they changed their psychological perception, first of all, of themselves, seeing, hey, I am good, I'm smart, I know what I'm doing, I love people. I want to work on this. I'm going to learn my communication skills. I'm going to learn what I need to do to go forward. And so that can alter someone's perception. You know, I was so amazed one time when I was just leaving a doctor's office. And in came this couple, and they were very professionally dressed. They were very charismatic and so lively. And I thought, wow, what do they have that they're selling or promoting to the employees in the office? I mean, everybody's like, oh, wow, here you are. It was chocolates. And I thought, oh my gosh, if you can have that professional of an appearance over chocolates, we could promote in almost anything. I remember being on an 18-seater, a little puddle jumper airplane one time years ago, but that flight attendant was the most professional, kind, refined person I've ever seen. And I thought, she's going to go far. She's going to get promoted because she treats everybody with the ultimate respect and care, even though she was on this little noisy 18-seater plane. So again, that makes such a difference in how we can influence people. We can change their impressions of us by changing, first of all, our perception of ourselves, and then also that will change their perception of us. As we look professional, we act professional, we write professionally, and we treat them with the utmost respect and courtesy. So those are some really important things. Now there's something called kinesics, and it's a study of nonverbal signals. It was started in about 1955, and what it was meant for was to see, how do people really read us? How do we know what someone is saying is truthful? Is it right? What's going on? And so the study of kinesics started, and it's broken up. Our nonverbal signals are broken up, or our signals, I should say, in three parts. The nonverbal communications is 55%, over half. What is that? It's everything they see, from the way you're dressed, how you look, stand, walk, what you're doing with your hands, what you're doing with your posture, your gestures, your movements, your handshake, how you shake hands. All of those things will say a lot about who you are, what you do, what you have to offer. And so 55% is nonverbal. That's everything else that they see. 38% is the quality of your voice, which is your expression, your pitch, and your tone. So you could say something that would be very pleasant, maybe, but the tone, I mean, the words might sound great, but the tone could be kind of cross, or it could be irritated, or it could be very friendly. So people take a lot into account on how you say something, and only 7% are the actual words used. And one of the examples that I like to use is when I did a leadership SARPI program, and I ran that program several years ago, one of the things I wanted to talk to people about was this same thing. And so I was using the example, going around the room, asking different people their opinions. And so I said, okay, let's pretend that you just heard someone give a presentation. And you're walking by, you don't have time to stop and talk, but you're just walking by and you want to say, oh, that was great. And then I'd look at someone that I was standing in front of and I'd say, so what do you think? And they would say, oh, wow, yes, thank you. That made me feel good. Well, one day when I was at this, it was kind of a business retreat, and so I did that with a person, and then next I walked up to a man who was sitting all by himself in the front row. He was a bank vice president, and he had on the navy suit and the tie and looked wonderful. And so I just thought, okay, I kind of leaned over, I put my hands on the desk or the table where he was sitting, and I said, well, that was great. And I said, how would you feel? Expecting him to say something like, I'm not so good. He literally glared at me and he said, I tell you to get your hands off my desk. And I was so shocked. I was like, So I was trying to figure out what to say to the group. And so I said, well, that just shows you there's different ways of putting an impression on someone, whether we meant it to be that way or not. So that's why we have to be so careful in how we communicate, not only with our body signals, but also with the tone of our voice when we talk. And so that was so important. And so the benefits, we increase sales, we increase our business with people, we're more approachable, we're more believable, we don't repel people. And so we always want to be very careful though. If you see that a conversation is going along just great, and then all of a sudden they stiffen up or their eyes become slits or they turn away or something like that, you don't want to let that go. You want to go, oh, okay, no matter what they're saying, I see there's some body language going on here that's telling me they don't like what was just said. There's an issue here. So watch people's body language. It's the most honest form of communication, way above what's coming out of their mouth. And so always watch that. That is just critical. Those are cues. And so if someone just suddenly did that, stop, go back, and maybe say something like, I see you have some concern on your face. Let's go back and talk about this. What are your thoughts right now? Do something to show that you care, that you're listening, and that you want to get on the same page again. And so that's very, very important to do that. Think about different countries and different cultures, because also there's so much between countries. I mean, I read where if you do an A-OK sign, or you have an open palm, or maybe you serve someone with their left hand, or you show somebody the bottom of your foot, it's a global economy now, and there are people who will really take offense of that. So always make sure that you understand the cultures of the people that you're working with, because it will make a difference in how people receive you. When people watch a prospective client or a prospective employee, they're looking to see, are they aggressive? Are they obnoxious, personable, shy, inferior? They're watching body language, not just listening alone, to see. And so you always want to show that you're a very success-oriented person. You believe in what you do and who you are and what you can offer them, which is most important. We always want to entice people and not repel them, and that means no dark clouds over our head, because a lot of times what's happening at home or on the job can affect our mood and our temperament. But we need to put that on the shelf for a few minutes while we're dealing with the business, and make sure you're watching people. You know, there was a study done several years ago, and it was with a man who was 5'10" and weighed 143 pounds. Now, researchers asked strangers what their opinion was of this man. And so they wanted to find out how body language affects us. So again, this man was 5'10", weighed 143 pounds. So he adopted what they called a lower class stance, where his chin was down, he just kind of ambled along. He just showed that he was not the least bit confident. And researchers asked strangers, what's your opinion of this man? Overall, they guessed him to be about 5'9", 136, sheepish, and ineffective. And so I would look at my group and I'd say, how would you like to be considered sheepish and ineffective? And you hadn't said a word. It was only by the way he carried himself. So then he adopted what they called an upper class stance, where his chin was up and parallel to the floor. His posture was excellent, and it wasn't haughty, but excellent posture, confidence, and he walked along just very confidently. And researchers asked strangers, different strangers, what their opinion was of this man. They said, oh, we think he's about 5'11", 160 pounds, masculine and aggressive. What made the difference? He was wearing the same clothing. The only thing was how he carried himself. And so that is so very important to do that. So always watch people and see what's going on with them, with their face, with their body language, not just what they're saying. You know, the thing is interaction zones, and those are important too. That's a concept to illustrate how comfortable people are when they're talking to you, and especially ones that you don't know, that you're just meeting. And so public interaction zone is usually like 7 feet or so. And so when you don't know people, you want some space in there. That's just normal. We think of a purse in a grocery cart though. There again, we need to keep it with us so it doesn't take off and go running. But you think of like theater seats. Most people, of course, nowadays everybody's reserving ahead of time, but most people want a seat that's empty next to them. They don't want to sit next to strangers. And I remember one time I asked a lady if she could just move over one seat so that I could sit with my partner, and she said no. I know, excuse me. And so sometimes that happens. You think of bathroom stalls, whether it's male or female, we don't want somebody right next to us if possible. So we like that space, and public space is about 7 feet. Then you have 3 to 6 feet, you're part of a group. You don't have to yell to be heard. You feel like you're part of the inner circle. So 3 to 6 feet is good for conversations that are important, that we want to have with people. You have personal, which is 1 to 2 feet. Those are for more private conversations, but be careful, especially if it's male, female, that it's not something that's going to make someone very uncomfortable being that close to you or cause any other discussions as far as that goes. So always watch that. And then intimate is 0 to 1 foot. So you better know that person very well and have a private conversation with them. But you never want to do that in business, okay? So those are good interaction zones to think of. Now, studies have shown that men prefer more distance in conversation than women do. And usually they say just kind of make it, if you're just talking with somebody at a business event or whatever, about 18 inches from the other person. Then they're comfortable and you are comfortable. So I just say, put your elbow on your shoulder, okay? So you just put your elbow on your shoulder, on your waist, and at the end of your fingertips, that's close enough to 18 inches, and that's about where you would want to stand from somebody as the closest when you're communicating with them. So those things should help too. Okay, silent yet loud signals. When we're sitting, okay, we want to be engaged in a conversation, so what you want to do is put your bottom in to the back of the chair and lean forward because you're engaged in a conversation with this person because you want to make them feel important and you want to get all the information you can and build a good relationship. If someone is sitting on the edge of their chair with their foot bounding towards the door, the other people are going to think, well, this person doesn't really care, okay? And so always make sure you sit there engaged in the conversation. Crossing the body. Again, sometimes when a person's crossing their body, they're going like this. Well, that could mean a whole lot of things. Is it they're defensive? Is it they're cold? Is it they don't know what they can do with their hands? And so this alone isn't a reason to think, oh, this person's got a barrier up between us. It could be, again, that they don't know what to do. Now, if they turn away, and maybe their eyes are turned away or their eyes become slits or you can see their fists and they become clenched or something like that, that's a signal that there's a problem there and they've put up a barrier. So again, watch and listen so you know exactly what people mean with those different signals. Another thing would be eye contact. Eye contact in the United States is very important. In some countries, it's considered maybe disrespectful. And so eye contact, though, to show that you're credible, that you're truthful, that you care about the person is very, very important, especially in America, to do that. And you want to have good eye contact. Same with the smile. A smile is very important. However, if someone just has a constant smile on their face, that can kind of appear like maybe they're a little bit fake. They don't know what to do, so they're doing that. Mirroring. I love mirroring. Mirroring is, maybe when you were a kid and you used to mimic a brother or sister and drive them nuts. I used to do that when I was a kid. But what you want to do is say, hey, I'm with you. I like you. And so if someone is sitting across from me at the table and, they kind of do these, you could maybe put your hands on the table. If they're going like this to listen to you, don't do it right away, but you could maybe just kind of put your arm up like this. What you're doing very casually and not immediately after what they're doing, but it's subconsciously saying, I like you, I'm with you. And when I was working at a radio station one time, the manager of one of the stations came back and he said, wow, when I went in to talk to this guy, he was very rude, he was very inconsiderate, he obviously didn't like me. And then I started mirroring him. And he said, what happened then was the guy bought a great radio package of advertisements. And he said, do you know what? When you came in here, I didn't like you at all. He said, I like you now, and I don't know why. And that was strictly because he was mirroring that person. And whether it's in business or family or friends, mirroring really helps to say, I'm with you, I like you. We're on the same page. Another thing is Hands and legs. Hands and legs say a lot about you. If you're stiff, if you're uncomfortable. If hands are open, that normally means, hey, come on in and talk to me. If hands are closed and eyelids or eyes are a little bit closed, that's usually a signal saying, go away. I don't want to talk to you. And so watch those signals. Touching is another thing. Sometimes people will, hey, how you doing? And give one of those things. And, you know, people who've had a past that includes abuse like I have, sometimes you have to be a little bit careful. If you see somebody flinch and move away, and I saw that happen a few weeks ago at a restaurant, actually somebody did to the waitress and she just went, oh, you know, and I could tell something had happened to her. So always be very careful with touching, be careful with like pointing. If you want somebody to sign a document, you never go like that. Sign this document, please, because that's pointing and people don't like that. So just hold the pen at an angle and say, would you sign here, please? Little things, but they mean a lot to people. They really do. Another one is diversity. You know, with the global economy the way it is right now, there's so much diversity, so many countries, so many languages, so many things we're working with. So we have to be very careful. And another thing is watching how people react to you. You know, eye contact, everything. I remember working with a lady a long time ago, and she had a supplier from New York City. And she said this lady was from China, and she had a very strong accent. And so Ione would always talk to her very loudly. She'd always be yelling into she was kind, but almost yelling into the phone. And finally, this lady said, I not speak good English, but I not deaf either. And so I always think about that because that was something that she just didn't even realize. Sometimes when a person has a physical challenge, maybe they're in a wheelchair, or maybe they have some problems there, and people tend to think they have to kind of yell at them for them to understand. Always be careful with that because that's not necessarily the case. And so you always want to maintain your credibility by what you say, how you treat people, and always know, hey, I'm interested in you. You're the important one. I'm giving myself to you in these areas to grow, to learn, to help you, and in return, that will help me grow and learn, and the respect that you can gain is really, really amazing. So that's it for this program, but we're going to talk a lot in the next one about our credibility and more on our communication skills. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.